flow from the Brie area through many communities such as Aveno, Circle, and Graphic Road downstream into the Korle Lagoon. Along its pathway are mostly sand and filth. These elements hinder the smooth flow of the waters. The country is ranked highly among African countries that are most exposed to risks from multiple weather-related hazards. Those who live near these areas and constantly bear the brunt of the flood's impact are asking for big rubbish bins while they constantly look out for dredging equipment. Grace Gavo and Nana Kwame live and work at Aveno.
Oh, it's not there 18 years to 19 years. Oh, so third year. I
have lived in this area for the past 18 years. I have lost count of my property that has been swept away whenever it rains because the floods render us homeless. My wish is to relocate, but I can't pay the rent in other parts of the city which do not get flooded. We plead with government to constantly dredge the lagoon so that it does not overflow when it rains.
By last 3-4 years by 2024
when the rain falls continuously, the water overflows its banks, and the force is strong enough to wash vehicles away. When it happens like that, we have to run for our lives. And with the onset of the rains, I plead with authorities to quickly act, or we will not hear good news.
At the outdoor market, traders are quick to remind us of the awful memories they have of the June 3rd fire and flood disaster that led to the loss of about 150 lives.
When I am out of the house and it rains, I get very scared. I wish the wall would be extended upwards a bit. I believe that will help us a lot.
To curb similar related events and to build resilience against perennial flooding in Accra, $675 million is needed. That will enhance flood protection regime along the Odo Basin and also re-engineer drains, remove obstructive materials, and implement a performance-based dredging program, according to the stakeholders. But that money is not available. Aisha and some others who spoke to Joy News say they've been hoping for the drains to be dredged so that their property, which are always washed away whenever the area floods, will cease. This corn mill operator shares his experience during every raining season.
We have to
dismantle our corn mill machine and equipment whenever it rains heavily. We fear for our lives because when it floods, live electrical cables falls into the stagnant waters, which electrocutes people when they get into contact with the water. Sometimes people even die as a result. We are compelled to climb up the stalls and stay there until the water dries up. We plead with authorities to raise the walls surrounding the Odo.
And as we were filming, the rains set in. Traders briskly begin to pack their wares to safety. They are not happy about the situation and have one common plea.
Last 3 months, a meeting.
3 months ago, the authorities held a meeting with us, and they told us they would dredge the drains. I hope that they will fulfill their promise.
However, likely get an immediate response, as the Works and Housing Minister Kojo Nkrumah acknowledged on the Pulse on the Joy News channel in April this year that his office is behind schedule on flood control program.
I have inherited a flood control program that is behind schedule. As I've told you, even what we are doing is just about 2% of what we should be doing in the Greater Accra region.
The last time we checked, the amount of money involved runs into billions of cedis.
It's $200 million. So yes, if you do the conversion, it'll run into billions. It's a $200 million project funded by the World Bank. That's a Garrett project. But what has actually been released or spent is not up to $200 million.
On the flip side, though, are some assurances from the Greater Accra Regional Minister, Titus Glover. He says a plan exists to desilt all gutters.
The assemblies, that is their responsibility. All the drains around, we need to desilt it and make sure any little downpour, the water will just flow.
As to when the promise will be fulfilled or the flooding situation permanently addressed, those affected by the negative impact of the rain continue to find alternatives to stay alive and to secure their property whenever the clouds gather.
You see, it
just started because we are packing off our stuffs. We get scared whenever it's about to rain. We can't watch on for the rain to wash us away. Authorities do not care because they have safe places to live with their families.
They are supposed
to dredge and clear the odor for free flow of the water.
For Joy News, I am Hannah Odami.
Welcome back on the AM show. And that story brought to us by Hannah Odami is quite touching. But let's get on the phone now and speak to Florence Kuji. She's in charge of public health at the AMA. And let's find out the way forward, how we can actually make some pathway, especially because the flood is not over. Madam Florence, good morning and thanks for joining the program.
Good morning, my dear. Please, how are you? And thank you for having me.
I'm great. Thank you for joining us. I don't know if you follow the entire story, but students and traders are demanding some immediate dredging of drains at the Korle Lagoon, Odo, and other places here in Accra. First of all, what is the plan of the AMA to tackle these issues?
Okay, thank you very much, my sister. So, you know, AMA is the beneficiary of the Garrett project. And the Garrett project is along the Odo, all assemblies along the Odo Road from High Street to the down street. So the Odo Lagoon is undergoing dredging. But what I would say is, yes, the Odo Lagoon is undergoing dredging. But everybody must play a part in it. Sanitation is not one-man business. It is a holistic business. It is an all-hands-on-deck business. As much as the government or AMA is playing their part to drain or to dredge or desal the drains along the Odo River and all other internal drains to prevent flooding, what does the citizen supposed to do? A citizen is supposed to register with an accredited waste collection company or a corporation tricycle waste collection person. But they refuse to do that, my dear. People will heap refuse in their houses. And when it is raining, that is the time they will dispose of the refuse into the drain because they think the rain will wash it away. Forgetting that you may be at the higher or the upper stream, but you have a relative downstream. And at the end of the day, everything comes back to square one.
Madam Florence, we had a series, Filth Exhibition, on this channel where we went out to see how residents, communities, and even some institutions were managing their waste. One of the things, or the highlights of all the people that I personally spoke to, was that they didn't have access to rubbish bins and proper waste disposal system. So, for example, the Aladuna community right behind the president's house, they said they don't have access to these cars, Zoom line, whatever. So the only way out is for them to dump the rubbish into the gutter. And so I get the problem that the picture of the problem that you're painting. So how do we tackle it from there? Because it starts from there. It starts from the management of our waste.
Yes. So, you know, in 2002, Ghana launched the producer-pay system. It means when you produce the waste, you must cater for it to ensure that it ends at the right place. It is the duty of every waste producer to acquire yourself a waste bin. It is the duty of every waste producer to identify the waste collection company around the vicinity that they are living. Because every assembly or every zone has a waste collection company. And they have to reach areas. There are tricycles that are being assigned to those areas. So it is the duty of the person who is creating the waste to ensure that I get somebody to give my waste up to. That is why it is a criminal offense when you burn the waste or when you dispose waste through the drain and an environmental officer gets you. You get to the court, and if you are not lucky, you can end up in prison not less than 3 months. It is a criminal offense to in this person dispose of. So when you produce it, it's your duty to take so that the waste ends the right at the proper place at proper time. But so that we are.
Madam Florence, you have to reposition. You're breaking up.
Okay,
yeah.
Is it better?
Yes, let's try again. You were saying.
So what I was saying, producer systems that you must cater for the for it to get to the appropriate place. It is supposed to get paid.
Oh, I'm sorry I have to do this again. You're breaking up. She was just trying to tell us about that it's a crime to not have proper waste management if you produce waste. We will try to reconnect her and then get the trust of her presentation or submission. That was Madam Florence Kuji, the public health, in charge of public health at AMA, and we're just talking about the impact of flooding, especially here in the Greater Accra region, and some residents and traders are demanding some dredging of some drains. I'm talking about the Korle Lagoon area, Odo River, and thereabouts. And Madam Florence was just saying that it is a responsibility of every citizen to manage your waste properly. Let's get back on the phone with her and connect. Madam Florence, you were saying that it is a crime, and if you are caught by the environmental agents, you can face up to 3 years imprisonment. That's where I lost
3 months, not
3
less
months.
than 3 months
right,
in prison.
Thanks for the correction.
Because,
3 months.
Yes, it is a criminal offense to indiscriminately dispose your waste outside. So it is the duty of the person who is producing the waste to acquire a dustbin. It is not the assembly that is supposed to give you a dustbin.
Okay.
The dustbins that the waste collection company gives them is just something that they are just trying to help. But it is the duty of everyone who produces waste to get a waste bin. After getting the waste bin, it is your duty to identify a waste collection company around where you are so that you can register for them to collect your waste. Because you are not supposed to dispose of your refuse in the open. Even the dustbins that you are going to use, there are standards. You must get a dustbin that has a fitting lid that can cover the waste properly to prevent it from spilling off, or to prevent animals from scavenging inside it to let the waste spill off. So all these things are in place. It is criminal offense, but Ghanaians always want to shift all the blame on the regulator or the regulating body. As I said earlier on, sanitation or waste management is a collective effort. The government plays her part, and the citizens also plays their part.
All right. So on that point, that government plays their part, the citizens also play their part. Especially when you go to the market, they pay some fees for AMA, for waste management. So I want you to draw the line for me or paint the picture. What is the responsibility of the government then? You've already painted a picture of what citizens are supposed to do: acquire your own bins, identify a waste collection company to come and take your waste. So where does the government come in, and where do those monies go?
So the duty of the government is to ensure that they procure an accredited waste collection company for people within, so that you can be able, for easy accessibility of citizens to access the waste collection company. It is the duty of the government to ensure that there is a landfill somewhere that the waste collection, accredited waste collection company, when they pick the waste, they can then have a proper disposal. Because in Ghana, we are not yet at the circular economy. We are trying as much as to even come into the waste segregation system. Let's say, let's use the two streams, the wet and the dry waste. So when we get that, so the government needs to ensure that we create the awareness, we educate the people, which we are doing. The government is doing it. Not just today, it has been on. Now, when you come to AMA, we are starting with the waste the source segregation. So you must segregate your waste from source. Even now, the waste collection companies that the government is procuring, we ensure that you are, if you are not well versed in the source segregation, the contract will not be given to you. So they are also trying to also back up what they are doing. So this is what the government is doing. It is the duty of the citizens to also ensure that you separate your waste, so that the waste will be collected. You don't lump sum the waste, because when we separate the waste, it reduces the volume of the waste that is going to the landfill site. That is another thing. We
will talk about the impact on our public health in a bit, but I just want to probe something you just said a few moments ago. You said the government is responsible for awareness creation and to ensure that there's a land site or landfill somewhere where they can, as in the final destination for
final landfill site. Yes.
Would you say that the government is actually delivering on this mandate? Is there enough public education on this? And do we actually have these sites well demarcated where people are aware? And I'm saying this also on the back of, I went to also in our series Filth Exhibition, somewhere around Staff College. People live there, but these tricycle waste operators, the Aboboya waste collectors, that's where they dump the waste when they collect them, which is illegal, I think. So would you say that the government is actually delivering on their mandate?
Yes. So gone were the days when the Aboboyas were operating in an isolated environment. So when we realized that this is what the Aboboya people are doing, now we are putting them into cooperatives. So every Aboboya is now has been placed under a cooperative at the assembly in which the person is operating. And with the cooperative, your tricycle is given a cooperative embossment with a number, with the assembly attached to it. So we are still educating the people. Before you give your waste to an Aboboya who does not have a cooperative embossment on it, you do not give. So now we are giving the Aboboya people also training. We are taking them through a lot of training, awareness creation, and a lot of in-service training. So now you can see that they are even doing better than they used to do formerly. Okay.
So obviously there are challenges in waste management in this country, and I'm not limited it to just the Greater Accra region. The impact of this on our health cannot be underestimated. I'm talking about malaria. I got one recently, and it was not an easy thing at all. How in the interim, I mean, while these challenges are being addressed as we go, what is the plan to actually tackle the impacts that this waste management or the way we are managing our waste is having on our health?
Okay, it all boils back still to the human beings between the regulator and then the citizen themselves. So it's still the education. It is not just only malaria that one can get from waste. You can also get typhoid fever. You can also get diarrhea. You can also get Korle Lagoon. There are a lot of series of these that one can get through, because if you live with waste, there are a lot of things that can come out from the waste. And even it can also lead to flooding. So there are a series of public health that waste management or improper waste management can bring on board to a public health. So what we are saying is, as a citizen, ensure that you have a standard waste collection bin. Ensure that you register with an accredited waste collection company. If you are at a place hard to reach, ensure that the accredited waste collection company that you are engaging, they will give you a tricycle personnel. That is why we have this, they call the ESPA. They have the Environmental and Sanitation Providers Association, where these Aboboya people belongs to. So every waste collection company that has trucks and they are portion, there's a hard-to-reach area. That is where they then dedicate these tricycle people to go inside to the hard-to-reach areas to bring the waste and then bring it to a place we call a transfer station, where the waste will then be collected from there to the final disposal site. Because looking at the distance from Accra to the final disposal site, that is why almost all the assemblies are now creating what we call the transfer station, where these tricycles will go into the interland to go and bring the waste and come and segregate them at a place. Then the final truck will send them to the final disposal site.
My final question to you, Madam Florence, is how do you think we are faring on the journey or our quest to be, as the President said, for Accra to become one of the cleanest cities in Africa? How do you think we are faring on that?
In fact, Accra will surely become one of the cleanest cities in Africa because we have moved a step. If you look around, how Accra used to be, a lot of things have changed. And I can bet you, I have friends that live abroad, and when they come and they see things within Accra, they applaud that Accra is neat.
What has changed?
I think we are doing our best.
What has changed?
You know,
give me some specifics, Madam Florence. What has changed? You said a lot of things have changed.
Yes, a lot of things have changed. For instance, let me say, people used to litter all over. But now it is becoming, it is reducing. It is not as how it used to be. People used to burn indiscriminately. It is reducing. Education is going. People are changing their behavior. Attitudinal is being changed towards waste management. And we are also making people to know that waste is not just waste, but waste is wealth in transit. If you segregate your waste, you are going to get some economic income out of the waste. And with this, changes are going on. When you go to so many schools, they used not to do waste segregation. But now, a lot of people are doing waste segregation. And the number of waste that used to go to the landfill site or the number of plastics that used to go to the landfill site has reduced. So a lot of things are going on. But maybe you can see waste on the ground, but it is not as huge as it used to be. For instance, Greater Accra Metropolitan Assembly, every day, we are able to transport 80% of waste generated within the metropolis to the landfill site. Formerly, it used not to be like that. So it is increasing.
How many people have been prosecuted so far for breaching these directives and laws?
So far, in Accra Metropolitan Assembly, for the first quarter, we have prosecuted not less than 60 people. But you know, when you are prosecuting a lot of people, it means people are not compliant. The lesser the prosecution, the higher the compliance. But last year, for the first quarter, we prosecuted almost 100 people within the first quarter. But this year, it has reduced. It means a lot of people are complying to the education and then the awareness that we are giving, the attitudinal change that we are asking them to change.
Are you saying that last year you prosecuted? Are you saying that last year you prosecuted over 100 and this year you prosecuted only 60? Just to get the figures right.
I'm saying that the lesser the prosecution, the higher the change of attitude. And the higher the prosecution, the lesser the change of attitude. You know, prosecution becomes the last bit. We educate you, then when you don't go by it, before we prosecute you. There used to be a lot of, what would I say, the top five nuisances that we used to count. One used to be indiscriminate dumping of refuse, burning of refuse, and then other things. But now it has changed again to a different thing. Now the most issue we are now having in town is food safety. That is the most issue that we are now battling with. But as for the waste, best practice on waste management, it is declining. People are grappling it bit by bit.
The numbers, are you saying that it is not actually the case that perhaps you're not being proactive and not catching people in the act, and so you're not actually seeing them, you know, to catch them and prosecute them, but rather it's because people are adhering to your directives and...
No, please. If you ask any practicing environmental health officer, the person will tell you that the lesser the prosecution, the higher the compliance. The higher the prosecution, the lesser the compliance. When people are not compliant, a lot of people are being sent to court for prosecution. But when they start complying, prosecution rate becomes lower.
All right. So there's an issue about, you know, plastic, and we know that it makes up the majority of the waste these days. And the way to actually deal with it is to recycle. What is the AMA's plan to tackle plastics or recycle plastic to reduce the number of plastic on the surface of the planet?
Yes, so AMA have identified some recycling companies, local recycling companies that they are working with them, and they are helping them with tools and other things. We are giving them training to ensure that we encourage them to do the best, to increase. It used to be lower. Even now, they used to do it in a way that could even have a health impact on them themselves. Now, AMA is giving them protective clothing, and we are regulating them. We are assuring that they do it to the best, that at the end of the day, they are not harming themselves while trying to clean the environment. So these are some of the things AMA is trying to put in place, not just only AMA, but all assemblies within the Gamma.
Florence Kuji, thank you so much for joining us. She's Director for Public Health at the AMA. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.